Hello, my name is Fischer and I am the founder and artistic director of Soundframe.
Hi everyone, my name is Martina Menegon. I am an artist and curator, and since last year I am part of the amazing Soundframe team. And together with Eva and the full team of Soundframe, we realize two amazing projects, the Area for Virtual Art and the CIVA Festival that happened in February for the first time. Both the Area for Virtual Art and the CIVA Festival are online platforms for discovering virtual spaces, digital art, but also to reflect on the potential of new technologies.
Yeah, and we will now present to you the virtual projects that emerged from the challenge, Free Spaces and New Social, that we did together with the Vienna Business Agency last year. And we invite you to an online exhibition through the 6 Mozilla Hub Spaces that arose from the call. We will hear from all the artists, which is really nice, and they will provide insights into their virtual spaces and to their artistic concepts. In the course of the call, the Vienna Business Agency and us at Soundframe asked our community to create a new environment in a social web VR tool. Over the past year, our lives have shifted heavily into the virtual realm. And yeah, we wanted to look at this also on a brighter side and reflect on how the virtual has allowed us as a society to stay in touch, to be connected, also on an international level.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we think at games like Second Life or Minecraft, they really have paved the way already years ago. While web-based real-time communication platforms like Mozilla Hubs, for example, they offer now maybe even more possibilities for designing virtual spaces and especially for interaction and communication with each other. So those technologies, I think, will accompany us into the future. And in the open call, we really aimed at thinking beyond their pure functionalities.
Yeah, so we asked the participants to think about how we can design a virtual space that invites its visitors to interact and that makes people curious about sharing and experimenting. So we were looking for dramaturgical, functional, and narrative spatial concepts for virtual environments and focused on topics like social interaction, artistic production, and knowledge exchange.
Yeah, and we were so very happy to have as part of our jury Wade Wallerstein. Wade is an anthropologist from the San Francisco Bay Area. His research centers around communication in virtual spaces, new phenomenologies made possible by the digital, and the relationship between digital visual culture and contemporary art. Wade is also the founder and director of Silicon Valley, a virtual parking lot for expanded internet art. You can find it on Instagram. And in Silicon Valley, he runs an exhibition platform and digital artist residency program. But Wade is also the co-director of Transfer Gallery in Los Angeles, which is an exhibition space devoted to simulation and other computational art forms. So it was really amazing to have him as part of the jury and discuss about, Mozilla Hubs as a tool, as an artistic tool.
Absolutely. He will also give us a little insight into his new exhibition in the course of Creative Days tomorrow.
Yes, amazing. So yes, you should.
Yeah, and to go back to the challenge and the exhibition, as we mentioned, we were looking for new artistic and creative approaches in using Mozilla Hubs as the main platform and tool.
Yeah, and for me, as an artist working with the virtual as an artistic medium, I've always been creating virtual reality intimate experiences, so for one person only. But once the pandemic hit in the early 2020, last year, me and as well a big group of digital artists were discussing how to showcase our works online since physical gatherings or physical openings were not allowed. And Mozilla Hubs kept popping up as the platform to go. And I have to say, I really fell in love with it. And I started to use it for my own artistic practice. I started teaching it. And later on, it was so amazing to start to talk with Eva Fischer and the whole Soundframe team. And we started to curate and create virtual spaces together. And I think Mozilla Hubs has many of the quality that we need in a platform these days. It can be easily accessed from mobile, desktop to VR headsets. It is easy to create art for it, even though it has a lot of limitation, but you can really use this limitation, I think, in such an artistic way, and you will see in the artwork that we propose later in the tour. It is an open source platform, and visitors will just need a link to enter, so there is no need to create an account. And most important of everything is it's a multiplayer online platform, so you can go and gather with friends or even meet new people. And I think this is something very, very important in times of social distancing. And as a last maybe word of love to Mozilla Hubs on my side, what I think it was really good for the art world was that allows us to experience art with others, but also to create virtual art in its native environment, being the virtual.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you, Martina. Like, also for me, Mozilla Hubs was, of course, one of many tools, but an amazing new tool to create exhibition spaces, social spaces that are easy accessible, as you just said. Like, for me as a curator, it felt, I would say even it felt very empowering already during the first lockdown in 2020 to get this new tool in my hands to create and to show art to an international audience. Also during the CIVA festival, I think when we showed, for example, the 6 artworks that we're going to hear a bit more about in the next half an hour, like for the first time, we saw the high potential that tools like Mozilla Hubs have in also bringing people together and in giving artists a platform to create art and be visible, even if times, as you said, of physical distancing or a lockdown. Yeah, and of course, also having such a brilliant team with you, Martina, as one of the experts in this field in Vienna, and Enrico Zago, Maximilian Prag, many, many others. It was just great being able to realize several exhibitions and gathering spaces. And I was really blown away by the quality of the concept that reached us also in the course of this open call that we are talking about right now. So it's really amazing to see what is happening and how artists starting to find this tool for their purposes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, so we are now going to give you an impression of the outcome of the call and show you a little bit around in the exhibition that was created for Free Spaces, a new social.
Yeah, and as we already mentioned before, with this call, we really chose 6 very different approaches showing the full potential of a platform like Mozilla Hubs. So we will have exhibition spaces, immersive art spaces, a stage for performances and discourse, but also educational space that deals with the structural racism. And we want to really introduce very quickly the 6 artists or artist groups, but then we want to give the word, of course, to them to introduce and talk a bit by themselves.
Yes. So as a quick overview, one of the 6 artist groups is Sunplay Studio that is run by the amazing Bika, Rebek and the amazing Daryl, Prost. And their hub space Foam, an investigation into an enigmatic material, seeks to make foam, this material that is typically unseen, to make this visible and virtually palpable. In doing so, they want to bring a greater awareness to its affordances and speculate on its life cycle and futurity, which we found really an amazing approach.
Yeah, and then we have Erika, Glionna, Stefano, Cerelli and Peter Varnai that together realized the project As Big as the Internet, As Small as a Village, which is a virtual journey through a fictional town of talking algorithms that tell questionable facts about each other and their environment. And this web VR experience really reflects on the influential power of digital information and how online communication has dangerously sunk on the level of telltales and gossip as well.
Yeah, exactly. The next artist duo that we have is Efua, Jarvis, Essandoh and Wilhelm Scherübl Jr., who together created React, which is a virtual experience for those questioning a system of oppression and who are willing to grow and contribute to an anti-racist society. we just found this an absolutely amazing approach, and it's a very needed conversation. And yeah, it is a journey that wants to go deeper and challenge the reality of the society we have been living in. So React asks you, asks us, asks everyone to observe, understand, to listen and learn, and actually to take action against injustice.
Yeah, and it's really a very important and gorgeous project with so many potential on, as you already say, like educational level. And we have Dominik Einfalt realizing Zulusin, which is an artistic examination of the book Staying with the Troublemaking Kin in the Zulusin by Donna Haraway. And these Mozilla Hub Space spaces actually are filled with various entangled biomes and creating different immersive dreamscapes to explore, each focus on different aspect of Haraway's book. So it was quite interesting because that was one project that really started from a text and then interpret the text in an artistic way and in a visual way, in an immersive way.
True, and you can get lost in many different spaces. That's really nice. It's a very nice journey.
Yes.
The next group that we can present is Format, Strategische Kapitulation by Michael Wallinger, Kevin Daryl Ferdinandus, and Claudia Strate. And their project, Scanners and Normalization, is a virtual space for users to explore and reflect on the structures and dynamics of social spaces in the network. And that was really very nicely used during the CIVA Festival already also, and also during Creative Days for, meeting people, for having discussions, for watching keynotes and even DJ sets. So that was really a very nice way to create a space to meet and experience different kinds of formats.
Yeah, and I think in a similar yet still different way, the last project by Andreas Palfinger and Christian Anutoiu, Orangerie of Post-Materiality, was a Mozilla Hub space that was designed and created by the duo, and it is really meant as a virtual social space that is used to primarily focus on the formation of a new space to experience and explore digital works. So really virtual sculptures, objects and atmosphere that are meant to be shown and experienced in the virtual, in their natural environment of the digital spaces. And I think in the case of Orangerie, it's really an exhibition space. So it's meant to be a space to visit and to gather and to explore together with others, but also alone if you happen to be alone there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are excited to now hear from these amazing artists about their artistic practice and their approaches to the free spaces and new social. Yeah, and to explore these 6 great social virtual spaces together. So enjoy the rest of the tour.
Yes, look forward to see all the spaces together.
Hi, this is Bika Rebek from Sunplay Studio. I am an architect, and together with my partner Daniel Prost, we run Sunplay Studio, which is a global architecture practice. Currently, we're based out of Vienna and Berlin and New York City, but also, as our name suggests, live online and really anywhere we go. We create physical and virtual spaces for various clients, brands, friends. We love to collaborate, and we're excited to be part of Creative Days. We started this project, which is called Foam, an investigation into an enigmatic material over a year ago, and we were really just interested in this idea of foam as this sort of material that is all around us, that we sit on, we sleep on. It's in the insulation, it's inside of walls, within the architecture and the spaces that we move in, but it's at the same time a material that we never see and barely directly touch, because it's always covered with fabric or drywall or something that kind of lives between us and this material. And so the installation or the exhibition or virtual world, whatever you want to call it, it lives in Mozilla Hubs, and we thought it's a great place to show it because it allows people to visit it as avatars and really kind of physically have an embodied experience with that foam that we usually don't have access to. So we created a series of 3D scans last summer in the Adirondacks from a house that was during construction, and we basically created, a series of detailed scans of this space where foam was kind of extruded or visible in places that it usually isn't. And these scans became the basis of sort of this blown up kind of environments that people can navigate in. And during our research looking at foam, we also realized, that this very integral part of, who we are and how we live is also extremely unsustainable. And so, because it's mostly made out of, unsustainable materials, that there's no way to recycle them and so on. So we looked into sustainable alternatives, and that's also where we felt like it fits into the topic of free spaces or a new social. We thought that this idea of how can we really redefine this type of material ties into these topics, and therefore that became part of the exhibition or part of the world in the form of an exhibition that was presented in a series of panels. And then also there's a big mushroom, there's a kind of a mycelium lounge, and so it's sort of the primary idea is still around foam, but we also are thinking a lot about what that foam means in society at large. And finally, how we think about social web we are. It's really just been a fantastic tool in the past year. When the world moved online and everything happened in Zoom meetings, to find a different mode of connection and expression between people. So it really, it has existed for a longer time, and we've been working in the space for a long time, but we've been excited to see how all these various festivals and organizations and museums are picking it up, and actually think that it does have and could have a long-term role in bringing people together in virtual spaces. And while we do put a premium on physical spaces and think that nothing can replace it, this is not really about replacement. It's really about finding other ways of connecting and communicating beyond borders, beyond sort of physical boundaries. So, and we think it's especially, as architects, we're especially interested in the medium because it is three-dimensional and accessible at the same time, right? So a lot of VR is incredibly immersive, but you need a special headset to use it. And so we were excited about the opportunity to build something that works on a headset, but also works, on a web browser whenever you want to be using it. So in that sense, we're really excited about where this is going, and how we can push these ideas further. It's also been part of an academic research I've been doing, part of a seminar at Columbia University that is called Tools for Show, where I've been investigating kind of the potentials of this type of social web we are, and the kind of worlds that architects specifically can build with it. And so, foam is really just the beginning. There's a lot more work that you can find on our website, Sunplay Studio, and we're excited if you want to follow along on this journey, check out the foam world, and see what kind of new forms of social encounters we can find there. Thanks so much.
Hello, we are Stefano, Peter, and Erika. We are three artists that mainly work in the field of interactive experiences and digital worlds. And yeah, we team up for this project, each of us bringing its own background. Stefano mainly took care for the concept, me, Erika, for the design of the characters and the graphics, and Peter took care of the 3D environment. We started to talk about this project early on last year when Stefan and me got together and started to be interested in experimenting with interactive experiences and researching on how people communicate in the digital world. We were also thinking about the beginning of the internet and how that was a utopic space for the exchange of ideas, information, and opinions. Basically, it was a space where everybody could coexist independently from nationality, color, and economic status, where information was accessible for everyone. Unfortunately, we also know how this utopic space has partly transformed into a place for profit and marketing, a place of disinformation and division where news and content often get transformed and distorted with the intention to affect the political and social landscape. We then started to study and analyze the world of misinformation, the interaction between algorithms and society, and the new social behaviors in the digital world, trying to give these arguments new representations. After we spent some time gathering data about how people interact in response to real and fake news, especially on Facebook and Twitter, Stefan, in particular, started to notice some connection between what he used to see in his birth village and the internet. The village he comes from in Italy, it's called Veroli, and it's quite small. People there are used to gossip about each other a lot, and if someone gets into some of this gossip, after a while loses really track of what is true and what it's not. We decided to represent this space as a traditional small village where algorithms would be the village inhabitants, creating in this way a time space contradiction. So one can find around the space the villagers who tell questionable AI generated facts about each other and their environment. In this way, we reflect on the influential power of digital information and how online communication has dangerously sunk on the level of telltales and gossip. So, what is true? What is fake? Who is who? The contradiction of this project is welcoming everyone with a strangely enjoyable, idealized experience. The aim is to give a different interpretation of how the classic dynamics of small towns and villages can also be found on the internet, with the substantial difference that the internet gives the possibility to individuals to reach large masses in a short time. This, which on one hand has a lot of positive potential, has always made the truthfulness of the facts much more fragile. This space we have created should serve so as a starting point for reflections on the current issue to understand the truthfulness of the information and should invite discussion and exchange of ideas.
We decided to use Mozilla Hub because we are always looking for new tools to produce art. And when we first tried Mozilla Hub, we were shocked about the endless possibilities it gives to create 3D worlds that are interesting, fun to explore, and beautiful to look at. In my opinion, it still has a long way to go before becoming a professional tool because it lacks of some important feature for working in team, for example, like versioning the spaces you create and spoke. It needs some improvements performance side, a more complete animation system, a system that let users interact with the elements around the space, and some other features that the guys of Mozilla Hubs already have on their roadmap. So I think that in the near future we will see big steps forward. We think that social web VR has a big potential to reach people that are not used to frequent traditional art places. So this is a big plus. Another pro is that you can give the power to extend and improve the spaces you create to your viewers, and it also reduces dramatically the boundaries that instead the physical space imposes by default. So basically you can break the limits of space and time.
Language I'm unfamiliar with, be too academic, too bold, or too well spoken, and never, ever, ever contradict what I already believe in. Teach me about racism, they say. Hi, we are the team React, consisting of Wilhelm Scherübl, and my name is Efua Jarvis Essandoh. I am a social worker, designer, and an artist. I am very passionate about actively contributing and shaping a non-racist society. My latest work, a Black Lives Matter protest mask I created during the corona pandemic in 2020, is currently part of two online exhibitions. One is at the Haus der Geschichte Österreich, and the second one is part of Wien Museum's online collection.
As mentioned before, my name is Wilhelm Scherübl. I'm a multimedia artist and architect. My work mainly deals with social and everyday behavior, as well as with political issues. Through the use of various media, my observations are transported and the work serves to convey a critical view. Together, we created React.
Teach me about racism, they say. This is literally the audio introduction when you enter our space. For me as a Black woman, the triggering pictures of Black bodies being killed by police is nothing new. Since that incident gained a lot of attention during a time of global pandemic, especially white people started asking, what can we do to prevent something like that from ever happening again? There are a lot of suggestions how one can contribute. For example, you can donate, you can gain knowledge from the internet, books, you can participate in so many different ways. For me, the most important part is just to start doing something. Make a conscious decision about reflecting on how you are part of and reproducing a systemic racist society. So react. The space can be used as a guide or a starting point. The most important thing is to just start your journey. The space consists of 6 stations where we also ask actively. For example, where do you stand? We also have his, her story, walk with me, what would you do, did you know, and who are you? We also have a reference list since we used a lot of material of people who have been working in that field for a long time. And as a goodie, we also listed a bunch of literature, films, documentaries, and social media accounts to follow. All in all, it is a space you can explore and learn from by listening, reading, watching, and discussing. That's why our space is also very suitable for using it as a teaching tool in schools. If you can implement this kind of topic and knowledge in a light, interesting, and exciting way, the anti-racism journey can start from very early on. It's a very lively experience for a serious topic.
While reading the open call, I thought for myself of what is the new social that I'm looking for. What are current social or political agendas that I'm questioning? And how can I, as a digital artist, designer, use the tools I have to make aware of certain problems? Working in Mozilla Hubs before, I was interested how it could be used as a platform to teach the visitors while they explore a space. The anti-racism movement was very public during this time, and being involved in talks and discussions offered the possibility to create a space about that topic. I'm not the right one to touch it myself as a white male, so I got in touch with Efua to discuss possibilities and offer my technical help to create a space.
Since Wilhelm has pointed out his privilege, but at the same time has acknowledged that he was in Happy Land, together we could create React. Doing his active part as an ally and understanding the demand of reacting to the racist system we live in, we managed to work together very well. Him as the architect and me as the content manager.
Using Mozilla Hubs in many different ways in the last year for exhibitions, talks, and sound installations, I wanted to test something new. Not focusing that much on the audiovisual experience of the visitor, but more on them learning by doing. Thinking also about how to translate situations of everyday life into a virtual space. Exploring the different ways how to transport content, etc. As usually with Mozilla Hubs, in some ways my expectations were too high, but there was always a workaround to somehow keep the main idea. What is a big pro about Mozilla is that you have to think really basic. Usually my first thoughts don't work or are too evolved. So that's probably also its biggest contra.
As a newbie to Mozilla Hubs and not being the one to program React, I had no idea of the technical challenges. I remember asking Willy, hey, can we do a quiz where the visitors can actively participate in choosing answer A, B, or C? And he said, Mozilla Hubs is a great program, but comes with certain limitations. Then I knew, okay, that wouldn't be possible with the quiz. But as Willy has mentioned, we always found a way around difficulties and could manage. I was just excited to have the possibility to create a space where if you want, you can have an individual or a collective experience and also use different senses while doing that. Although React is a virtual space, you still get a real life experience.
Hi, I'm Dominik Einfalt. I'm right now studying at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna. And my main artistic focus is on interactive installations, digital art, and also biodesign. And out of this combination of these three parts, I also created my project Hutulusine, which is based on the book Staying with the Trouble, Making Kin in Hutulusine by Donna Haraway, which is focused on the complex relationships between organisms, humanity, and she's calling it humusity, and our role within this entangled world. And Hutulusine explores various biomes, each reflecting on the aspect of some aspects of Haraway's philosophy expressed in her book. To understand the project, it's basically all in all 67 different virtual biomes, which can be all discovered. All are interlinked and entangled. understanding that the biomes, nature, and basically everything is entangled is also the key to Haraway's thoughts, in which humans are no longer presumed opposed to nature, but we should start to recognize as being within the nature. Or each sphere, each world in the project is focused on one aspect of the book. So while flying and discovering all the spheres, we would also start to discover or find out the key of the book and also of partially of the philosophy of Donna Haraway. Why did I do this project? Right now I'm very interested in bioarts, but also the philosophy behind it, because I think it's so important to start to see the entanglement, to start to see how connected everything is. Not just humans and nature, like everything in nature, everything in humans. Not entangled, we are just not seeing the truth. And I think it's a quite interesting way to see these connections in nature and put it into the digital world, because of course also the digital world is connected, is entangled to everything. So maybe in the first moment it does not seem that logical, but for me it was a very natural step how to do it. And I got very hooked by creating a VR space for a lot of people, where you don't have to have VR glasses or anything. So it's also a very low threshold to use the art piece, which is, I think, very, very important for me. And the Mozilla Hubs, to be honest, it's very amazing tool. I think it's amazing in the way of you don't have to be a professional 3D artist or anything, and you can still, or also your programming skills, you don't have to have programming skills, which is insane, to create VR spaces, online VR spaces, where a lot of people can join, where a lot of people can have fun together without programming, and a very open source setup. I think in that way Mozilla Hubs is amazing. But of course, if the threshold of using something is low, so it's simple, then also a lot of functions are maybe not available, because a lot of functions complicated. Other way around, yeah, it's easy to use, but also, of course, a lot of functions are maybe missing, which would be nice to have them. But in general, I think Mozilla Hubs is an amazing tool to create such spaces, especially because already quite a lot of basement is there. So you just you can just start to create, and you don't have to use you don't have to know a lot of stuff, and you can still create something amazing in VR. I think it's very interesting, especially in these days with Corona, with Zoom meetings, with staying at home office, whatever. I think it's a quite interesting tool to create also exhibitions, for instance. So for me, I can really see myself, not myself, but I can see school trips, online VR school trips together. Maybe a school or like a class can join my VR space and discover the entanglement. It's just a new way how to deal with all this stuff, and I think it's a very refreshing way to have a VR space, because right now with Zoom, I think everybody's really fed up with Zoom, even though it's amazing because you can see the other's faces. But this very playful way of having an avatar, the spatial sound, which is amazing. I think in that way it's just
as well as to settle the
interesting.
troubled waters and rebuild quiet places. The word trouble derives from a 13th century French ver meaning to stir up, to make cloudy, to disturb. We, all of us on Terra, live in disturbing times, mixed up times, troubling and turbid times. The task is to become capable, with each other in all.
Hello, we are Chris and Andy, the creators of the Orangerie of Post-Materiality, and we'll talk a bit about our project today and ourselves. So I am Christian Anutoiu, and I am a visual artist working with virtual reality, sculpture, painting, and I'm currently living in Vienna studying painting and animation film at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna.
Hi, and I'm Andreas Palfinger. I am half designer, half visual artist, also studying at the University of Applied Arts Vienna. And I'm basically studying graphic design and doing exchanges in architecture, in painting, and in industrial design. And my interests are more and more in virtual spaces and in digital spatial design. What brings us to our project, the Orangerie of Post-Materiality. What is the Orangerie? It's a virtual exhibition space showing digital works, objects, installations, and images, either in 2D or 3D space. And we're asking the big question, what happens if we rip off the materiality of objects? And the Orangerie should also be a social space to experience those objects, those works of art together. Within the space, we have different spatial situations fitting to the needs of each exhibited piece. So, for example, the main biomorph organic shapes, then some angular, almost brutalistic shapes, some cave situations, floating islands, a huge dome, or architectural elements which are visually framing the environment.
Exactly. So as Andreas already said, our aim was basically to create a virtual space for digitally created works that is also experienceable in web VR. That is non-conforming to the classical white cube aesthetics that we sadly are still surrounded with, even in the virtual space. And we aim to homogenize these borders between the virtual presentation and the works that are being actually displayed in it. And we achieved this through the modular construction of the Orangerie. It is actually built out of 6 individual stages, a mixture of organic shapes and angular ones that we merged together. And this actually allows us the freedom to adapt it easily for new future exhibitions or events, performances. And that is, for example, through adaptable to the reposition of the individual stages of the scale, of the stages themselves. We can retexturize them and switch the the lighting situations. To create a whole new ambient that fits to the specific exhibition itself, because our aim is not to represent these works in reality itself, but to construct a new one that serves the exhibition.
We're using the tool Mozilla Hubs, what we think is a great invention and opens up many opportunities. It's easy to use, it's easy to access, and a great way to connect, especially in times like this. The pros, or some pros that we find are the interaction possibilities, the live simulations, and the meeting online, and for example the possibility of having a tour or an opening together. But also we have to admit that Mozilla Hubs is quite limited. So for example, we had to reduce the works to a minimum, or sometimes you have to find a creative way to find solutions or to do compromises. These restrictions, on the other hand, again open up many ways, new ways of displaying the pieces, and again the technical possibilities really shape the outcome a lot.
Yeah, and we are actually in the midst of planning something very exciting right now. We plan to make the Orangerie open source. That means we want to make the decimated file of the construction of the stages public, and every other stage file, so anyone can use it and stitch together their own stage to their own needs and do basically whatever they want with it. And over the course of the next months, we are planning to release more and more stages that people can stitch together, and which will of course also be available for free. Just waiting for people to be texturized and imported into either Spoke, Unity, or whatsoever software, program, website they're using. And yeah, we can't wait, and we are really excited to see what people would do with it in the future, and are super excited to see it, as I'm repeating myself. Yeah, so thank you for listening to us, and
yeah, have a look at the Orangerie, enjoy a tour.
Yeah, and hopefully see you there soon. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Hey, we, that is Claudia Strate, Kevin Ferdinandus, and Michael Wallinger, are part of Format strk, a collaboration of people working in different fields and from different perspectives, but we get together to produce artistic and cultural projects in a wider sense. We founded Format in 2016 and have since organized concerts, curated exhibitions, lectures, and readings in our temporary art spaces. We also produced music videos, created works for festivals, and worked on various collaborative projects.
Scanners and Normalization is a virtual space that is inhabited by digital entities. These chimeras, as we have come to call them, have already manifested in different iterations in works over the last years. We eventually started working with this idea of treating artificial datasets as virtual beings, since human manifestations on the network, our avatars, profiles, and the likes, to a machine or a program are essentially just that, datasets. It made sense that machines would treat each other in the same way that they treat datasets that are actually created on human interfaces or from scanning human activity. And of course, there are filter systems in place that are more or less efficient at filtering out bots, fake profiles, and other dirty data, but it was still collected and processed and still existed somewhere on the network, maybe in some backup, caches, or file dumps by hackers on a shady file hosting service. It became obvious that the chimeras wouldn't be just made from artificial data, but they would contain traces of human data points and physical reality that didn't make it past the gatekeepers. So we decided not to data mine for the chimeras as we initially had thought, and instead deliberately sabotaged the tools we were working with. For the production of the chimeras, we used photogrammetry, face recognition, and body recognition algorithms. The floating entities you can see in the space, but also the space itself, are generated from misinterpretations by these algorithms mimicking human vision. By giving form to these dirty datasets and placing them in a space that can be entered by visitors, the whole space, as well as each of the chimeras, become a spectral archive, where flawed information is stored, but also moving. This brings up the question, are these bits and pieces still a story to tell? as narrating is essential to human understanding of the world. So we gave the chimeras a story to tell, generated by combining narrative forms with different systems of text generation.
We felt that Mozilla Hubs, as an open source and thus transparent architecture, with its dedication to privacy, anonymity, and accessibility, as well as its core concept of collectively designing and experiencing virtual spaces, suited our concept very well. The configurability of the user's presence in form of avatars creates an interesting confrontation between the human-controlled avatars that share the virtual space with the chimeras, making the muddy borders between human actors and machinic datasets entertainingly obvious. So much so that we decided to continue working on the project and turn it into a piece of software using a game engine, which would allow us to avoid the technical limitations that Mozilla Hubs sadly imposes on its users. We think that web VR holds great potential for engaging with digital art, which has in most cases been limited to either being represented on a screen or forced back into a physical form. The immersive experience of VR, being in a spatial, almost bodily relation with an artwork, seems like a uniquely novel approach to exhibiting digital art. For now though, the infrastructure, be it in terms of bandwidth or tools in form of VR glasses, isn't there yet. But we are excited to see what people come up with to move away from traditional forms of presentation, and hopefully we can contribute our part.
Wow, yes. Thank you very much to all the artists for your insights and for the wonderful artworks.
Yeah, this was really amazing. And of course, we want to thank you all for watching and following us. And if you want to dive into the Mozilla Hub spaces yourself, alone, with friends, with strangers, you will find all the infos you need at civa.at/hubs.
Yes. And last but not least, thanks to the Vienna Business Agency for this great collaboration. And now we wish you a great time at the Creative Days Vienna.
Yes, thank you so much. Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.